Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're ready to get going now, please. I'd like to welcome you to Aurora's Committee of Adjustment meeting. I'll start by introducing my committee members and staff that are with us here tonight. I'm your committee chair. My name is Grace Marsh, and the remaining members are Tom Plamondon is our vice chair, David Mango, and Roy Harrington. The Secretary-Treasurer with us tonight is Justin Leung, just coming to a seat there. Our planner is Marty Rokos, and our council and committee secretaries tonight are Linda Bodos and Sarah Murray at the front. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and create a record that is available to the general public, including on the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight are available on the desk at the front over here. Should you wish to receive notification of any of the decisions of tonight's meeting, please complete the appropriate form, which is also over there. The owners and their agents will be automatically notified. For each application that we'll be considering tonight, the following process will occur. I'll briefly outline the purpose of the application, and then the applicant or agent will be given an opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It's the applicant's decision as to whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information as we've received it. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I will invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address and sign the corresponding request for notice form that's on the table over there. After completing the form, please hand it to the Secretary-Treasurer. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion of this committee, no further presentations will be made. Please ensure that all questions and comments are directed through me as the chair, not to the applicant, not to other members of the committee, please. And if relevant, I will request that the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant, however, will be given an opportunity to respond to any questions or comments that this committee feels is appropriate. So we'll get going with tonight's meeting. The first thing on the agenda are declarations of pecuniary interest.
No.
Thank you. I'd like to declare that I have a pecuniary interest in item number 9, as the my husband's employer is affiliated with the firm that's applying. So I will turn the chair over to my vice chair, and I'll leave the table for that application. We have an agenda before us. Could I get a motion for approval?
I shall move.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
All in favor? That carries. We have minutes of our previous meeting. Could I have a motion on those, please?
Through the chair, I'll move acceptance of the minutes as circulated.
Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. All in favor? That carries. So before we get started on tonight's application in the order they are on the agenda, we understand that one of the applicants is requesting a deferral. So I will ask the applicant, please, on item number 10 and 11, 672 Henderson Drive and 684 Henderson Drive to come forward.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Gooder. I am the applicant representing the owners, and request before you through the secretary was actually for a deferral. We have the benefit of receiving today some additional correspondence, despite the fact that planning staff have indicated their desire for a deferral. I'm here this evening with the hope and intent to connect with members that have showed up in the community surrounding the proposed applications. I've actually had the opportunity to speak with a number of them because we did a separate mail out to area residents in addition to the city notice, the town notice. And so the request is for a deferral to allow us an opportunity to address the matters raised by staff, have the benefit of their comments as well as those of the Conservation Authority, who we have spoken with over a number of months, and also to afford me the opportunity with my team to connect with area residents to try to address their questions and concerns. So that is our request, and with your indulgence, Madam Chair and committee, I will make myself available should the committee grant that request in the foyer to hopefully connect with residents that have come here tonight.
Okay. Thank you very much. First thing then is I'll look for a motion from the committee if we're for deferral, if that's our wish.
Through the chair. Testing. Thank you very much. Through the chair, I'll move that the request from the applicant to defer be accepted.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that?
Chairman, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. So the applications in question are MV 2017-15 AC Stanek and MV 2716 AC Losar Developments. Just one comment before I call the vote on that. For members of the public that are here for that, the applicant has agreed to, the applicant's planner has agreed to make himself available if you'd wish to have any discussions, but I would respectfully ask you to please go around the corner into the Lexand room. It's empty, and if you have a meeting out there, we won't be able to have a meeting in here. So please, if you could convene in the Lexand room if you choose to do that. Okay, so I'll call a vote on that. All in favor of deferral? That carries. Thank you very much.
Look at the crowd. Wow.
So thank you. I'll ask you to exit the chambers quickly and quietly so that we can move on to the balance of our agenda for the other people that are here. Thank you very much for those remaining for your patience, and we'll carry on to item number 1 on our agenda tonight, which is application number 2017-03, Wenar and Wortham, 1921 Machel Avenue. The owner has submitted a consent application to sever 19 Machel Avenue and retain 21 Machel Avenue. Please note that the aforementioned property is also subject to an application for zoning bylaw amendment, which is file ZBA 2016-11. Planning Services had no objections, Building Services no comments, Infrastructure and Environmental Services no objections but have laid out a condition. Parks, Recreation and Cultural Service no comments, Central York Fire Service no comments received, Electra Utilities and York Region had no objections. Legal Services had no objection, but it is subject to a condition. Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, no comments received. And Heritage Planning and Building Services had no objections, but they've also included a condition. Is the applicant or agent present?
Robert Worthman. I have no comments, and I accept the report as it's been submitted.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to this application? Seeing none, I'll look to the committee for comments or questions.
Yeah. Thank you. I was just noticing that there are a lot of conditions there, and one of the conditions is that you have a period of 2 years from the issuance of the certificate of official. I'm just wondering if you're aware of that condition, and is 2 years achievable for you?
I'll be quite honest with you, I'm a bit at a loss as you are. I'm not quite sure what that would mean. I've read through the report. Maybe someone could just briefly touch me on that, or if I had a representative that was helping me along with this, that was a former planning advisor, and we've reviewed these items. I didn't see that there was any issue in them.
Staff, perhaps, just for clarity, that when I looked at that staff, I see that it normally is 1 year, but I noticed that it is a 2-year.
Look at the first condition is 1 year, and the second one is 2 years. It's kind of-
Actually, the chair just actually reminded me there's 1 year
And 2 years.
and 2 years. So I'm just maybe for the applicant some clarity there.
The chair, yes. In the staff report, actually, typically for consent applications, you have 1 year from the date of decision to meet those conditions. And then afterwards, once the conditions are satisfied, a certificate of official is then granted, and that has to be deposited at the land registry office with the deposited reference plan, and then you have 2 years from the date of issuance to issue that certificate, to deposit that certificate of official at the land registry office. So 3 years. And then, yeah.
So it's actually a total of 3 years. Thank you for asking. That's clarity for us as well. 1 year to meet the initial conditions, get your certificate, and then 2 years to deposit that at land registry.
With that, yes.
Staff, just say typo, just to make sure the condition is very clear. This is condition number 3, second bullet point, fourth line. I think the word should read render instead of ender, just for clarity.
Sorry, David, could you, just for me as well, when you say second bullet, you mean the second dot under the
Yes,
three?
yes, yes.
And the fourth line?
Yes.
And what is it you want to change there?
After connections as well as road restoration to render.
Oh, render.
Yeah.
Yeah, not ender. Okay, thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll look for a motion, please.
Application be approved with the conditions as described in the staff's report.
The next item before us is consent application Sadat, 36 Mark Street, Lot 11, Plan 15, application C 2017-04. The owner has submitted a consent application to sever the lands to create additional lot that total, that's weird English. The owner has submitted consent application to sever the owner's lands to create an additional lot that will total 2 lots. Planning Services, no objection, subject to conditions. Building, no comments. Infrastructure and Environmental, no objection, subject to conditions. Parks, Recreation, and Cultural, no objection, subject to conditions. Central York Fire Service, no comments received. Electra and York Region had no objections. Legal Services had no objections, subject to a condition. Heritage Planning had no objections. Applicant or agent for this one? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hassan Saadat, owner of 36 Market Street. I have no comments. If there is any question, I'll be glad to answer.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll look for any members of the public that would have comments on this application. Please come forward, state your name, address, and your comments. Thank you.
I'm very nervous. My name is Chris Collins, K-R-Y-S Collins, and our property is at 2 Keystone Court, and we butt up against the back of 36 Mark Street. I'm just going to just quickly, I don't expect comments on my little concerns, my list of concerns rather, and I do have one bigger opposition to this severance. My concerns, the list is like, I don't know, loss of value of my home, the noise, traffic, house density. Like, how do I know if they get permission to do this, they're not going to turn around and come back to this committee and ask for, first of all, if you give them the okay to do a driveway where there is no driveway, that they'll turn around and come back and say, we'd like to build 6 townhouses there. I don't know that. It worries me to death. People, cars, driveways now will be in my view, looking at me. I've never had that. I have privacy there. It's my private space. I now have grandchildren, 5 and under, who I worry about them. There's no fence there, and I do worry about them perhaps walking onto a driveway. I don't know exactly what they're doing. I object to any change in zoning. I don't know why, I just do. It should be a single family zoned. It's been that way for over 30 years that I've been there. I don't know how they're going to sever the lot. I did notice afterwards the drawing of the 2 homes, so you're asking for permission to build 2 homes. I understand that. I don't know if there's any tree removal. I love my trees. I don't want them gone. I don't know where the location of the drive is going to be, and I'm worried about the height. My main opposition to this severance is, and I'm just going to read it, I'm sorry, impact on privacy in my backyard. Now instead of a backyard, I'll be looking at a driveway. I don't have much room from my deck to the edge of the property because the corner property, I don't have much of a backyard, it's all at the side. Currently, there's no fence on our property, and changing anything may, again, decrease the value of my house because I will lose the quiet neighborhood that I have grown to love. Impact on my green space and water flow. Instead of grass, there'll be asphalt, driveway, a house. I don't know how that's going to impact the flow of the water. That used to be the farmer, Mr. Harris, used to say that that was all farm wetlands before any homes were built on my court. I don't know if I'm no conservation person. I don't know anything about how water drains, but that's another, I guess, problem. By adjusting and creating a new driveway on Spruce Street, I believe it's against what you already have in your official plans. And I do have some quotes from your design policies. All new development within the stable neighborhood designation shall respect and reinforce the existing physical character and uses of the surrounding area, with particular attention to the following elements. It talks about street size, configuration, setbacks of the building from the streets, the pattern of rear and side yard setbacks, and Aurora plans talk about protecting stable neighborhoods. This plan recognizes the importance of protecting and enhancing these stable residential neighborhoods. That's a quote from the town plan. I believe a neighborhood is where people live. This house has been sitting empty and uninhabited since it was purchased. The current owner did try and resell the house, and when it didn't sell, he has now proceeded to ask for severance. This is not a family dwelling, but I feel an investment for someone who is looking to make a profit by severing the land, perhaps changing the zoning, I'm not sure. The benefits of the current owner will be a one-time thing, but what is done here will negatively affect the rest of my stable neighborhood forever. Aurora Plan says all new development shall be compatible with its surrounding content. The application to sever this land and put a driveway basically in my backyard is not compatible with the surrounding contents of my neighborhood, and it's not compatible with the spirit of stable neighborhoods. This proposal is not in accordance, I feel, with the official plan of Aurora. Related to my privacy, the addition of another house and a driveway will affect the enjoyment of my backyard. Does that mean I'm finished? I've only got one more thing to say. There will be a driveway in the backyard instead of what I'm looking at as a green lawn, correct?
Sorry, just I'll interject. I have no idea what all that is, and you please take all the time you need for your comments.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. I've never been here before, so.
Thank you.
And I said to my neighbor, the last time I stood up in front of somebody, I peed my pants. I was 6 years old. So.
Please don't do that.
I'm very nervous, but my last thing, this is an adverse effect on my view because I refer to the pleasant view I currently enjoy from my dining room, from my deck. And from that vantage point right now, I just see green. I don't particularly want to look at a driveway as I'm sitting on my deck. I think that's it. Those are all my concerns, and thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me tonight.
Ms. Collins, thanks very much.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate your comments as well. Are there any other members of the public? Please come forward, ma'am. Okay, and then I think we have a gentleman after that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Lalonde. I live at 102 Spruce Street, which is just around the corner from this lot. My neighbor touched on a whole bunch of things that I had. However, I have a couple things that she did not mention. For me personally, one of my biggest concerns is the noise that would be caused by demolition and a reconstruction of two houses, not one. Our neighborhood is a nice, quiet neighborhood. How long is this going to last? When is this planned for? My husband works nights. How is he going to sleep during the day with a whole bunch of things going on as far as demolition? Another thing is I drive by this intersection 4 times a day. Do I want to be delayed? I don't, because I'm going to work. I'm coming home. I'm going back to work. Another concern of mine is the mess on the ground, in the air, that demolition would cause, the reconstruction would cause. Traffic. Now there's the restrictions at Yonge and Wellington. A lot of the traffic is now coming along Mark Street. How is that going to be affected by when the road is there's big trucks there or whatever, then people can't get by? How is that going to affect the rest of the neighborhood as far as the traffic? Because they're all going to go different ways now, right? And my last point is I personally am worried that this might be setting a precedent. This is an area of single-family homes with very large lots. You do this for one, is my neighbor across the street from me, who also has a very large lot, going to now want to do that too. And I'm just worried how that will affect my property and my property values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public, please come forward.
Do we come together because we're husband and wife? Is that okay?
Hi, Kurt and Bonnie Evans. We're at 4 Keystone Court. We also back onto this property. About 3/4 of our property backs onto it. There's a couple of main concerns that we have that Mrs. Collins also addressed one of them. In particular for us, it's the maturity of the area that we bought into quite a few years ago. We have a lot of trees that are right on the lot line. So my request would be around information on will the exact lot line be defined and where those trees are, and the concern is through tree removal and what the plan is there, because as Chris mentioned, we have nice greenery. These trees are 60 feet tall. You know, they've been around. That's our view, and that's why we moved into this area, a large reason why we moved into the area for that kind of thing. So that preservation is very important to us. I echo the concerns that have been said as well in terms of noise factor and you know, all those things as well. The other concern is around that intersection, adding another house. The traffic concerns, I drop my kids off on the bus every single morning, and it is a busy intersection, more so now just because of, you know, the Wellington Street thing, but even besides that, it's busy. Adding a driveway, another driveway to that corner is only going to cause that much more issue with people trying to get in and out. So that would be a concern of ours as well. I don't know how that fits into the zoning and whether that's a good idea or not. Anything else to add?
No, I just, again, to expand on the fact that there are actually many school buses that come through that corner because they're coming to Lester B. Pearson, as I'm sure you're all well aware, but even other children are being bused to other schools if they're not at the French school. And so just, again, the safety, because there's all those corners at Mark Street and Spruce Street, there's bus stops on all those corners in the morning and in the afternoon. And so, again, not just the construction process, but just the regular use, if there's a driveway there, that's going to be a safety risk, I think, to the children as they're getting on and off the buses as well. And already it's a bit of a concern with some drivers going too quickly quickly. And I think if people get impatient because somebody's trying to back out of a driveway in an odd spot, it's very close to the intersection itself, I believe, where the driveway is going to be placed. So that's quite a concern for us, as well as what was mentioned about the driveway essentially being in our backyards too, more so for our neighbors. But we don't know how far it's going to come onto our lot, backing on to our lot as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other members of the public? Okay. I'm just going to take an opportunity before we move on and have actual questions and comments from the committee to address some of the things that you have raised here tonight. One of the issues, I guess, if you will, for this committee is what is before us tonight is simply an application of consent to sever. So that's really all that we can deal with. What gets built, when it gets built, the monitoring of the construction while that's built, all of that comes at the site plan approval time, and we don't do those, council does. Correct, staff? I haven't gone wrong yet. Jump in, please, if I lead anybody astray. So there will be further opportunities to have comment as to the building. The construction inconvenience, I completely relate to that. I know it can be difficult in a stable neighborhood. The fact is that's happening everywhere all over this town. In every town, infill development is the order of the day, and it happens. We have staff who monitor that. There are bylaws in place to control noise, clean up, and all of that. So there will be avenues to talk directly to staff if and when that process takes place. The drainage was something that was raised. Zoning was raised. This complies completely with the zoning as it exists. So they are not asking for a change in the zoning. So we have no jurisdiction on that. It does comply. Drainage, you'll see a number of conditions that have been placed on it by our environmental and infrastructure department. They're concerned about that as well. There's letters of undertaking that are being required within the conditions on this application. Stormwater management plan has to be done. There's existing municipal services. It has to be shown we have capacity to accept the extra house. And this is the information that is before the committee. Another issue I heard a number of times was trees, mature trees. There are no less than 6 conditions that have been placed on this application by our Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services. They include complying with tree removal bylaws. They include an arborist's report, an arborist on site during construction. The letter of undertaking addresses driveway locations, general grading. It addresses fencing. So much of what I've heard you raise tonight, which are absolutely legitimate concerns, have been addressed for us in the staff report. I would encourage you all to take a copy of this staff report, read this through. It'll give you which department is responsible for some of the issues that you've raised. And it'll give you some process background as to how some of this gets addressed. So I just thought that may help rather than trying to address each one of your concerns all at once. Thought that might be helpful. I'm going to give the applicant an opportunity now to respond to any of that he would like to. Thank you.
If I may,
please.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but just like to point out for an infill single detached dwelling like what's being proposed, there's not actually a site plan application that's required, not for a single detached dwelling. But as you said, the conditions being proposed by the Parks and Infrastructure departments are intended to handle the concerns that you were mentioning.
Okay. Just a question then, if I can. So who approves in the end the actual dwelling? Or is that all, staff already approved all of that here?
Through the building permit application, that's where the actual building permit is issued. But that can't happen until all of these conditions have been satisfied by the departments that have issued them. So they have to be signed off by each department that has recommended these conditions.
And the building permit applications will control things such as height of the building, mass of the building on the lot, etc. Correct?
The zoning controls the height and the massing, the setbacks, and which are all being complied with by this application, and that is reviewed at the building permit stage to make sure that the proposed house actually complies with the zoning.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And feel free to interrupt me anytime. Please go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe you cleared some of the concerns regarding the city part, maybe the noise, the cleanliness of the street, and I just want to go through the details which mentioned one by one, if I have enough time, regarding the changing the decision later to go maybe for townhouse or something. I just want to note, if you look at the plan I put over there, this lot historically was 2 lots. So I'm not changing anything. I'm just moving it back to what it was a few years ago. Besides that, based on current city bylaws, it's not possible to do anything else over there. There is a minimum lot required, which is around 15 meter or 10 meter something. It's around 50 feet, which this is the maximum thing I can do over there. So only 2 lots. And if you look at the other lots on the street, all of them are 50 feet. So we're just in the same range. And as you mentioned, there is no amendment to the zoning. Everything is by law, by the book. All the zonings are in place. The height, the width, the mass of the house, everything is by the code. This was regarding the later decision. So nothing else going to happen there. It's only 2 houses. That's it. The driveway. At the beginning, we could not put the driveway on the front of the house because of the topography of the ground. It has a slope around 2 meters in the middle. So based on the current zoning, if we want to put the driveway in the front of the house, it was not doable based on the current zoning bylaws. So that's why for the house on the corner, we had to move the driveway to the side. This driveway, I just want to note, the current driveway of the house is exactly at the corner of Marks and Spruce. Every time I want to back out to the street, I had problem because cars coming from all the way. In this way, which we're going to change the driveways, one of them is coming more further inside the Market Street, the other one is in middle of the Spruce Street. Hopefully, and I think the engineering department going to comment on that, there won't be causing any more traffic. It's actually right now, I think they are in the right position. Before it had a problem. So this was the driveway. The driveway, it's more to our front of the house. It's not back to the house. And if you can see the vegetation which are in the back of the land with the current trees, nothing going to be touched. So everything will remain there. The hedgerows, the tall trees, everything will be there. Nothing's going to be cut or changed. So I think that current driveway, both of them, are more helpful to the traffic. It's not causing any more troubles. Regarding, again, for trees, this is the current site plan. If you look, we don't need to cut any of the trees. Only one, maybe, if I can show it here. This one. This tree will be in the the new proposed driveway. And I think by the current city bylaw, I'm eligible to cut 1 tree during a year, which I think this will be the tree which I'm going to cut. So I'm not going to do anything else. And even before I had a talk with the staff, we have another tree in the front. This one, which actually it's not a really healthy tree. But anyway, we don't need to cut it based on the current. So this will be the tree. It's not on the way for anything, so we don't need to actually cut it. But again, I proposed, if possible, to cut it and plant it like a deciduous tree to get, as I said, it's not a really nice looking tree, and maybe even it's sick. I have to get the arborist report for that. But anyway, I had planned to plant a deciduous tree, maybe anyway, get some more lights during the winter, get more shade in the summer. So generally, I believe we only need to cut one tree, and that's also, again, when we go to implementation and start the construction, if there is any way even not to skip that one, maybe we can do that. So this was for the trees. I believe you mentioned for the water, drainage, there are conditions on the consent application that everything should remain same. There won't be any extra drainage or extra access to the city stormwater, so everything will be same and based on condition. I think this was the items that mentioned. I hope I covered everything. Still, if there's any more questions, I'll be glad to answer.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to open it up now to the committee to ask any questions and make any comments they would like to make. David, we'll start at your end if you like.
Oh, okay. Anyway, this is to the question to the residents who made the presentation. Did you have the opportunity to read the staff's report? Yeah, okay. Yeah, as Grace described, a lot of your concerns, actually, they're in here. They will not be addressed with this application. But let's assume this application is approved. There's another process which comes later, and they supposed to provide, those documents, those reports, address those concerns. There was a question about a concern about the height. Again, this is just to this is just to divide the land. We don't know about how high the houses will be. So that again will be addressed when the applicant is making an application. There was a concern about the setbacks from the property line and so on. Again, this will be addressed later. There was a concern about the defining the lot line and so on. The severance is actually the lot lines outside the current lot will stay as they are. The only different lot line will be introduced will be actually inside between those two severed, one severed proper lot and the retained lot. So I don't think that should be a concern to you, because the lots, the lot lines outside, they'll still be the same. So those are just my comments, just for the public from what I've heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy, any comments or questions? Go ahead, please. We're going to turn it on once. Turn on. And now wait until you see red here. Now you're good.
Whoops.
Red and red.
What? Oh, it went off. Am I live? Yeah. Just to follow up also, as was said before, when the building permit is issued, I'm sure the neighbors will be able to see the building permit. If I'm correct, could I ask staff, is that correct, Marty?
Through the chair, I believe that's correct, that that's public. However, there's not a notification when a building permit when a building permit is applied for.
Now go. When it turns green, you're good.
Now it turns green, we go.
Yeah, see that? It's green.
Green. Is that go? So if that helps a bit, when you see construction there, you could go into the town building department and see the drawings to see what's going to happen, et cetera, the heights, the setbacks, the drainage scheme, et cetera, et cetera. So if that helps a bit, thank you.
I'll ask if the applicant can just put the site plan that he had back up just for a second. And my question is as follows. So for the public that are here and have spoken, and this question, first question is to staff. When the application came in, my package is quite complete. It's got an awful lot of information in it, including the floor plans. Everything is there. I notice the applicant is shaking his head as well. Before this application came to this committee for approval of the consent, did staff, and I already know the answer to this, but for your benefit, staff did review this from a zoning perspective as well. Am I correct?
Was a preliminary zoning review as to make sure that the zoning does comply, and it's to reiterate all of the zoning regulations like the lot area, frontage, the yard setbacks, the height, and the lot coverage all comply in this proposal with the zoning requirements.
Also, this property is in the Heritage Conservation District, so I do know that the Heritage Planner did also meet with the applicant, and there was discussions to ensure that what is being proposed here is going to conform, the built form will conform with this neighborhood.
So for your benefit, folks, if you do pick up the staff report, you're going to see a lot of information in there. The assumption that the applicant is making and that staff have reviewed would confirm that what you're seeing here through a normal building permit application would be approved. If the applicant was to change something that might require a variance for a setback or some other minor issue, then yes, there would be a process that would come back, for example, to this committee, at which point you would have an opportunity to address your concerns again. But from what we have seen, what the committee has seen, and what is available to the public, if you have a look at it, you will see what the applicant is proposing to build. I don't think he would go to that much trouble and that much cost and investment at this stage of the game without a clear understanding that that is what he wants to come forward with in terms of applications and build. So I'll ask the applicant, is everything that I have just said correct? Am I making the right assumption on their behalf? Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, just before I call for a motion, what you will hear from us during, I'm sorry, David, do you have another question? I'll let you in just half a sec. Just before I call for a motion, what you will hear in the motion, it'll be either denied, or if it's approved, it'll be approved with conditions. So again, I just wanted to point out that there are conditions regarding the draft reference plan has to comply. The infrastructure and environmental have conditions about a letter of undertaking for location of driveways, drainage, stormwater management, municipal services, as well as payment of all fees and charges, and there's a lot of them in there too. There are a number of conditions from Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services. That's the requirements for arborists to be on site, arborist reports, compliance with tree removal bylaws. We have conditions from the legal department, understanding that there'll be a cash in lieu dedication in lieu of parkland, because usually any type of development requires some parkland for the enjoyment of town. So there will be cash paid in lieu of that, which will go into future recreation services for the additional home. The applicant has to get a proper demolition permit, carry that demolition out under condition. So it's 4 pages of conditions. So if this is approved, all of those conditions will be held. And again, I'd recommend either go online and get this report or get a copy here, and you'll be able to watch it and follow that that is complied with. So David, you had another comment?
Yeah, okay. This is mainly to staff. Before building permit, there should be another application, maybe a site plan application or load grading application. And the question is, will the public or residents not be given the opportunity to comment on that before granting the building permit?
Through the chair, the anything that would be required would be in the conditions. Whether there's anything for grading required would be in the conditions from the infrastructure department. Those are reviewed by engineering staff and park staff for their conditions. There's, as far as I know, there's no public process or public notification after this point. This is the meeting where the public has the opportunity to speak and ask questions and raise concerns.
Yeah, my understanding is infill development is a little bit different than a new development, which goes through all those steps for the first time. This is already a residential home lot. A house is already permitted as long as it meets the variances of size, scope, setbacks. It's good to go if we consent the lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay. Likely load grading application.
Yeah.
Which is part of the building permit application.
Conditions are there for grading. Yep.
I'm looking at assurance.
Push the button, Dave.
That the town, okay, so, yeah, the town, that you make sure that these conditions are completely addressed and the residents' concerns are taken care of. That was the reasoning. Yeah, thank you.
Through the chair, you're correct that, lot grading is looked at the building permit stage.
Okay, so is there a motion on this? If there's no further comments. Push a button first, please. Now wait for the green.
I think I have the green. Yeah, so I will go ahead and I will move that application C 2017-4 be approved for consent, and conditions as they appear in the staff report be acknowledged.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Roy. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right.
Bloody lights.
We will move on to item number 3, which actually is another consent application to sever. This is Waters at 2426 Bailey. File number C 2017-05. The owner has submitted a consent application to sever 26 Bailey Crescent and retain 24 Bailey Crescent. Planning Services had no objection, but they have conditions. Building Services had no comments. Infrastructure had no objections, but they had conditions. Parks and Recreation, no comments. Central York Fire and Electra Utilities, no comments were received. York Region had no objections. Legal Services had no comments. Lake Region Simcoe Conservation Authority, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, no comments were received. Applicant or agent?
Chair and committee. I'm Deborah Evely, agent for the owners. Just for the record, Mr. Waters, one of the owners, is here tonight. I'll keep my comments brief, and I apologize if they're a bit redundant to the application. I just wanted to emphasize that this involves 2 properties. There's a semi-detached property or building which is situated on it, And the construction was in 1960, and for over 50 years, these two properties were held in separate ownership, treated, serviced by the municipality separately. And the reason we're here is really an inadvertent mistake. Mr. and Mrs. Waters have owned 24 Bailey and reside there. They're longtime Aurora residents, have resided there since 2001. And in 2012, as an investment, they bought the neighboring semi-detached property. And now they're hoping to sell it to help fund their retirement. And this issue was discovered. They never, of course, meant for title to merge. And the property, as severed, will really just be a recognition of the continued treatment of two properties. And indeed, at the Land Registry Office, there's still two separate PINs, two separate legal descriptions. So essentially, nothing is changing here. It's just almost a bit of legal fiction that has to be addressed. And we need the consent application so that the Waters can sell 26 Bailey. I hope I'm not getting too ahead of myself. I do have one concern on one of the conditions, but before perhaps I get to that, maybe I'll just ensure that there aren't any questions from the committee about the application.
Okay, that would be appropriate. I'm going to ask for comments from the public first. We give them their opportunities, or anyone that would like to address this particular application. Okay, seeing none. So the question I have, because there were two PIN numbers, it was able to be sold legally, the other side, so that clearly there was other ownership at a point in time?
For the entire history of the property until 2012. So
wow.
I don't know how many different owners, but from the original construction in 1960, this has been held through a chain of different owners, always held separately. And even though now it's owned by the Waters, it's resided in as a separate dwelling by their tenants. And it was just that they bought the property, and because they had common ownership, it merged in law. Technically, the LRO, it's more like they don't know, they don't care. It's as lawyers, we have an obligation to recognize that the Planning Act has been, well, it would be violated if we transferred 26 Bailey without coming here today. So they're still going to be treated separately, and we don't need to get any new description or new boundary lines. The meets and bounds descriptions in the two PINs will remain the same. The wall that sort of divides the two semi-detached dwellings is going to stay the same. Nothing is going to change. It's just fixing this unfortunate error.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'll look to the committee for, the public had no comments, so any questions, comments from the committee? David? Wait for green.
Again.
Yeah, okay. So Audi, maybe ask the applicant, you said you have a problem with one condition. Can you say, because my comments will be related to the conditions. So what question was that, or concern?
Have had the benefit of exchanging correspondence with him about this. It's the second condition, which I understand is a standard condition. It speaks to depositing a draft reference plan. And I do understand from my communication with the Secretary Treasurer that the site plan on file with the town could probably suffice, but the wording of that condition as it reads right now, the way I understand a reference plan usually would imply a surveyor having to be retained, which can easily cost upwards of $2,000 to $3,000. And I'm concerned, especially with the consent fee already paid, the hardship on this application if we had to deposit a reference plan. And I think the object of that condition is you don't want anything to change. And I think the assurance that this committee can have is that we can't. The LRO already has two separate descriptions, and we can't convey anything other than exactly what has been conveyed for more than 50 years before the Waters took common ownership. That's all that we can convey in law. We would actually have to come here with a very different application and get a reference plan if we wanted to do anything different than what's historically been done with these properties. So I'm just concerned about that condition the way it currently reads.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we'll see if the committee may perhaps address that condition or have staff speak to that condition at the time, and I'll go back to David to carry on with his remarks. Thank you.
Okay, so did you, when you were making this submission, did you give a copy to the town, a copy of the reference plan showing those two lots?
We were able to rely on the site plan already on record with the town, which shows the division of the semi-detached dwelling. It shows the boundary line. that was accepted with the consent application.
If you are sure, you are saying that 2 lots already, there should be a reference plan showing all those divisions. I think that's the reason the staff are asking for that. Did you give them a copy? Did you get a copy from the registry office or?
That was on file was already sufficient to meet that requirement. Because this property was built back in 1960, some of the ways that things are handled now when you build a new property, that wasn't the way things were done. So there's a plan of subdivision registered on title. There's a meets and bound description from the original 1960 transfers, but there isn't like a reference plan beyond the site plan on record with the town, which clearly does delineate the property line and shows where the semi-detached dwelling is, cut through at that property line. So that is with the consent application.
Okay, I'm going to maybe ask if staff, I'm going to ask staff to comment on this one, please.
Through the chair, yes, I've already had some discussions with Ms. Everly about this application. I believe when they submitted their application, there was a survey that they did accompany with it, which would come with any home when it's purchased. Again, the condition clearance is really up to me and my discretion, so long as it satisfies when I review it, if it's something that I feel is acceptable. So I think the survey they provide that came with when they purchased the properties, I believe those could suffice to be deposited at the Land Registry Office. I don't believe a new survey needs to be completed because this is more of a technical matter. This is not really creating a new lot. And in that instance, we would be looking for that new survey or reference plan to be produced for the town.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can consider waiving that condition in our motion if we wish, if that is sufficient. Any other questions, David? Are you there? Okay, Deb. Roy? Nothing for you? Tom? Good. Nothing for you? All right, then I will look for a motion. Tom, do you want
to? Through the chair, I'm going to move that the consent application C 2017-5 be approved and that condition 2 be waived. All other conditions would apply.
Seconder for that, please.
Second.
The next application before us, number 4 on our agenda tonight, is a minor variance application for Aurora Investments, Inc., 145 Industrial Parkway South, Units 16 and 17. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw number 221378 as amended, respecting to allow warehouse use within 60 meters of the east property line. The property in question is in a general industrial exception M2-7 zone. Section 26.4.8.1 of the zoning bylaw allows in part warehouses and industrial uses, food processing establishments, light metal production plants, machine or welding shops, plumbing shops, printing establishments, saw or planing mills, and steel metal shops, not including any obnoxious use, and provided, however, said uses shall not be located within 60 meters of the east property line. The applicant is proposing an addition to the existing industrial building with warehouse which is situated 14.3 meters from the east property line, thus requiring a variance. Planning Services had no objections, building had no comments, Infrastructure and Environmental, no objections, Parks and Recreation, no comments, Central York Fire, no comments received, Electra Utilities in York Region had no objections, Metrolinx, no comments were received. Applicant or agent?
No further information required. Yes, sorry, Peter Kaufman.
Representing Aurora Investments, Inc.?
Representing Buddy's Kitchen, one of the applicants.
Okay. Ah, okay. All right. Are there any members of the public here who wish to comment on this application? Thank you. Seeing none, questions or comments from the committee? Tom? You got it.
Oops, got it. Oh, Madam Chair, to staff, Marty, do you know why that condition was put in there, the east lot line reference?
Through the chair, the condition was essentially was put there to protect the two residential lots to the east from any potential impacts. And there are ministry guidelines for separation between incompatible uses. And basically, this allows the town to have some control over any of the uses that are permitted but restricted to that 60-meter setback. For anything like, in this case, a warehouse, then it allows the town to review it and have some control over whether or not it's appropriate.
Okay, so are the residential uses continued just east there, and did we have any objection at all from the residents that have those lots?
Madam Chair, no, yes, the residential uses are continuing, and maybe Justin can elaborate, but we did get actually a letter of support from one of the adjacent residential owners.
Thank you, we'd like to know about those.
Well known in the community of Aurora, a wonderful gentleman with a great history, and we, Buddy's Kitchen, being great neighbors, had Mr. Cousins over to visit, and there is a letter in our application with his signature on it, accepting our proposed use. Thank you.
Thank you, that was just pointed out to me, and I apologize, I slipped my mind. 12 applications, there's a lot of paper here. All right, I'll look for a motion then.
Just before, I know I skipped on the question. I did spot that letter, sir, and I just noticed that how recent is that? Because there's no date on that at all.
Date under Mr. Cousins' signature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Took care of my concerns. So I'll put a motion forward through the chair. That's what I just wanted to double check. No conditions. So I am going to move that minor variance 2017-13 be approved as presented.
Second. That carries, thank you. You have the history. All right. Number 5, chugging right along. Minor variance application, Geneve Inc., 250 Don Hillock Drive, Unit Number 1. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 22-1378 as amended, respecting to allow reduction in required parking spaces for a fitness center use. The property in question is in a business park zone. Section 27.d.4.6 of the zoning bylaw requires 159 parking spaces for the proposed fitness center use. The applicant is proposing 118 parking spaces on the subject property, thus requiring a variance of 41 spaces. We had no objections from planning. We had no comments from building services, Parks, Recreation and Culture, Central York Fire, Electra Utilities, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, the Ministry of Transportation, and we had no objections from York Region. Applicant agent?
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Bill Outred. I'm the agent for the applicant. Specifically for the owner of the trampoline park, Air Riders, Inc. And yes, we are here just asking for the parking variance related to this application. Respect to staff comments, they certainly are well well detailed as far as the use and the parking is concerned. I'd just like to add just a few comments that may help the committee with this particular application. We are basically considering this use as a fitness club by definition. It's more or less considered as a recreational use typically in most municipalities. However, it is a trampoline park, and I just want to point out that the trampoline parks are becoming very common throughout North America. We've had a couple of other ones approved, Mississauga and in Brampton. Basically, about 70% of the warehouse area is trampolines. So when you're considering a parking rate such as a use like this, it is certainly different than a fitness center. The fitness centers typically have a much more higher density of occupants at peak periods. So this is why, in this particular instance, a trampoline park doesn't create near to the parking that a fitness center does. And in a situation where you're in an industrial building with 5 or 6 other tenants, it is a great shared use occupancy. The trampoline park is open 4 o'clock and into the evenings on weekdays and on weekends. And typically, of course, the use is very popular on weekends when the other businesses in these buildings are closed.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that would like to address this application? Thank you. Seeing none, I'll look to see if the committee has any comment or questions. You're good? You're good? I'm good. You're good? We're all good? All right, then I'll call for a motion. Tom? Beg your pardon? No, don't touch it.
Don't touch it. I'll move the application. MV-2017-14 be approved as submitted.
Seconded? Thank you. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.
Damn these things.
Yeah. Turn it off. See, now you're swearing and it's on. Turn it off. Turn it off. Nothing like technology to throw us, huh? Item number 6, 212 Earl Stewart Drive, Inc., for the address of 212 Earl Stewart Drive, Unit 5. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 221378 as amended, respecting for commercial school as a permitted use. The property in question is in a general industrial specific M6 zone. The applicant, section 23.3.3 of the zoning bylaw does not include commercial school as a permitted use. The applicant is proposing to allow a commercial school (art) within industrial unit 5 on the subject lands, thus requiring a variance from this provision of the zoning bylaw. Planning services had no objections. Building services had no comments. Infrastructure and environmental, no objections. Parks, Rec and Culture, no comments. Central York Fire, no comments received. And Electra Utilities in York Region had no comments. And we have applicant or agent here with us.
Planning staff, good evening. My name is David Choi. I'm an architect representing my clients, the Mr. Nick Timokine and his wife. They're happy to answer any questions that you may have that I cannot answer, but I'll certainly try to do my best to answer them. So we come before you seeking to allow for an additional use a commercial school within the M6 zone. The subject in question would be 212 Earl Stewart. I have a site plan currently up. It consists of 2 identical buildings, 212 Earl Stewart and 218 Earl Stewart. Within each of the building, there are 8 subunits. Okay. Our subject tenant wants to lease Unit 5, which is this unit here, at 212 Earl Stewart. And the use would be a performing arts studio, and it provides for individual and or group dance and drama lessons to children and young adults. Okay, If I may, that's a preliminary floor plan that we've created with our clients. I don't know if I can talk while pointing to. But you come in through here. That's the main entrance. You're greeted by a receptionist. Behind him or her, there's a series of change rooms that leads to a teaching classroom and washrooms. There's a washroom here, closets. There's a teaching classroom that is actually a 2-story warehouse space. On the second floor, so the stair is right here, leads you to upstairs. Okay, once you come up the stair, it's actually half the space. So the second floor ends here. And there is a more intimate teaching classroom on the second floor for any educational-based teaching. So it's the exact same function that's occurring on the ground floor and second floor. One is a little bit more intimate. It's a 1-story space on the second floor, while the ground floor space is a 2-story warehouse space. The overall area of each of the units is 200 square meters on the ground floor and 100 square meter on the second floor, so a total of 300 square meters per unit.
Okay, that's it. Any members of the public to comment on this application? Oh, seeing none, any comments or questions from the committee? Okay. You've pushed your button.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess maybe, I don't know, is this an existing school that's being relocated, or is this something brand new? It's brand new.
Could you just answer that for the record, because that's not recorded from over there?
I guess the other question I've got is, it relates to me. I don't see any conditions or comments from Central York Fire Services, so I'm a little bit concerned about that second level. And if you've got kids up there, that staircase becomes the only means of exit. And so if there's a problem on the ground floor, what happens above? I know that's more of a building code issue.
By code, anything over 40% becomes a second floor, otherwise it's deemed as a mezzanine. A second floor allows for one means of egress if 2 things kick in. One is travel distance, and the other is occupant load less than 60. So you are permitted one means of egress. The second floor stair is contained within a 45-minute fire separation, which allows someone 45 minutes to get out to the ground floor upon, in the case of fire.
Okay. Pardon the delay, I'm just waiting for the light. Thank you for that quick answer, and I'm glad you are an architect, and I'm glad you had the right answer for that question. I guess the only other thing I guess I had on here was concern about parking, but there's no reduction in parking based on the use, and I guess that's to staff.
Through the chair, there's no reduction in the parking based on this. The original parking study that was done when this application, when the site plan was approved, it points to the number of parking spaces that the demand for parking, and based on that parking study, which was also used for previous variances on this site, there is no parking issue, and that was reviewed by our engineering staff, who have no objections to the application as well.
There we go. Hours of operation, do we know what they are for this particular facility?
when kids are out of school. So there, once again, as my previous applicant, there's going to be some good synergies within the tenants themselves. As I understand, units 1 and 2 is also a recreation, and unit 3 is also a commercial school. So there's a legitimate synergies that will occur between the tenants.
Okay. It is becoming a more common occurrence. These types of variances are becoming more and more common, coming to this committee. And at a certain point, and I'm glad you did point out that there are some similar type uses within that particular building. And as those uses become more common, and they are becoming more common, those peak periods are actually going to shift. They're going to come to a balance point where even on evenings and weekends, because you've got a dance school, you've got all types of different schools. You heard the previous application. The parking demand will become such that not your problem, but I think the town is actually going to have to start looking at that in terms of what those peak periods become as units roll over. Again, it's not something that we deal with with your particular application, but it's going to become more and more of a concern, and it'll probably require more study before an application comes forward, because that will occur. It's really more of a comment than a question.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Roy, go ahead. You're good.
Good. Am I good to go? To staff, to Marty. Marty, is a building permit required here?
Through the chair, it's my understanding that a change of use permit and a building permit would be required. I'm not an expert in the building permit side of things, so that's just my understanding.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further comments or questions, I'll look for.
I've got the mic, sorry. Roy, I'm a little ahead of you, a little quicker on the button. So I'm going to move that minor variance MV 2017-17, seeing no conditions, be approved as presented.
Second. Thank you. You're good. I feel like we're playing Jeopardy. The first one on the button gets gets the stage. All right, moving right along. Number 8, minor variance application Momot, 32 Wells Street. No?
Number 7, 122.
Did I miss something? I did. My apologies. You're right. I threw it up thinking it was the last one. Number 7, MV 2017-11AB, 122 Wells Street, Lewis. The applicant seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 2213-78 as amended, respecting to allow reduction in front yard setback to construct a detached dwelling. The property in question is in a detached dwelling, second density residential R2 zone. Section 11.2.2 of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum front yard setback of 6 meters. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story detached dwelling, which is 4.5 meters to the front property line, thus requiring a variance of 1.5 meters. The applicant is also seeking relief from the provisions of the same bylaw, respecting to allow a reduction in the minimum distance separation to the front property line to construct an open-sided roofed porch and porch steps. The property in question is in the same zone, etc. The bylaw requires encroachments for open-sided roof porches to have a minimum distance separation of 4.5 meters. From the front property line, the applicant is proposing to construct an open-sided roof porch, including steps, which is 2.7 meters from the front line, thus requiring a variance of 1.8. Planning Services had no objections. Building had no comments. Infrastructure and Environmental had no objections, subject to a condition. Parks, Recreation, and Culture had no objections, subject to conditions. Central York Fire, no comments received, and no objections from Electra, York Region, or the Heritage Planning and Building Services Department. Applicant or agent?
It's applicant, Jason Lewis. I have no comments, except for in regards to the two conditions. I see the first one is to maintain the original grading diagram at property limits. You can see from my existing lot plan, the house itself here is an asphalt driveway, so it won't be changing the grading there. And on the other side of the new construction is a brand new construction house. So I would also conform with their grading, as they have a swale that now proceeds between the two houses. The other condition is...
Sorry, before we move on then, I just need a bit of clarity there. So are you saying because of the other builds, you can't maintain the original grading and drainage because it's already being changed?
No, I will be. I will be maintaining the
be.
grading.
Sorry.
The new build to the south of me, they had their grading done, I believe it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I would maintain that swale just for the drainage between the houses.
So you have no problem with the condition
none at
as
all.
written? Okay, gotcha, thank you.
And the second one is in regards to removal of trees and an arborist on site. I actually have no trees that I'll be removing at all. So I wasn't sure if I still require an arborist attendance or not.
Okay, I'm going to direct that through to staff then, because clearly this is either a standard condition or Parks and Recreation want this for some reason.
Through the chair, typically Parks, sometimes with the review of the applications, they do set standard conditions. But again, it's up to them, so long as you can discuss with them afterwards if the application is approved, and if you're able, if they're okay with in discussions with you, if they're okay with the situation there, they can clear the condition, and without having you need to do what's indicated here.
All right. So,
Madam Chair, if I may, just to interrupt quickly, if it helps, the comments from the acting manager of Parks mentioned that the new dwelling may have an impact on the existing mature trees and vegetation, and the supporting documentation does not include any reference to the existing vegetation. So it looks like because of that, the conditions were included to ensure that the vegetation is protected.
Thank you. So if this application is approved, I would suggest that the committee would probably leave that condition in play, and then you can work directly with that department. Okay. Any other comments for us? All right. Any members of the public that would like to speak to this application? All right. Seeing none, questions or comments from the committee?
Chair, through the chair. Now, I'm really worried with some of the conditions regarding the trees. There are especially condition, something to do with money. This is the last but one bullet point for condition number 2. So the last but one, that is on page number 3, which is about the owner shall agree to provide financial securities based on the total value of the tree compensation, evaluation, and so on. I'm just thinking that maybe this will be requested later on after the owner demonstrating that no trees will be affected. But usually with security deposits, usually you get them before you do the work. So I'm worried about that condition.
I may be able
this
to
the
help a
staff.
bit with that. I think what gave me comfort with that, David, and staff can confirm this, this is all to the satisfaction of the Director of Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
So the Director has the embedded authority to not take money if there is not an issue. Would that be correct, or your interpretation?
Through the chair, that's correct, and that the director would have to sign off on the condition before building permits are issued.
Just very quickly, when I was flipping through your drawings here, I couldn't help but think, looking at the design of the home, would this be a standard design that you picked from some plans that were readily available?
No, this is actually a custom designed layout and house design. I originally went through Home Hardware. They deal with Beaver homes majority of the time. So no, it's not a standard cookie cutter home. It's 100% custom design.
I noticed that you're showing a bay window, and there was a section of the foundation that has been cut out. And I assume then that because there's no foundation there, it's just a straight bay that is cantilevered off from a straight line foundation. Is that right?
Yes, in the original, I believe in the blueprints that you have, it does show a poured concrete foundation. Once I discovered that error, I actually have new set of plans that shows that it is cantilevered over the foundation. It has no existing foundation under the bay window.
Yeah, that was the clarity that I was looking for. One page it's bay window, and then I'm looking at a foundation, but it looks like it was cut out, so that makes sense. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Not, I'll look for a motion, please.
Through the chair, I move that the two applications be approved with the conditions as presented in the staff's report.
Thank you, David. Second. Tom, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Yeah, now number 8. Sorry to get those people all excited. Momot, 32 Wells Street. This is applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 221378 as amended, respecting to allow an increase in the maximum lot coverage to construct a one-story detached dwelling. The property in question is in a special mixed density residential R5 zone. Section 11.2.3 of the zoning bylaw allows maximum lot coverage of 35%. The applicant is proposing to construct a one-story detached dwelling with lot coverage of 40%, thus looking for a variance of 5%. The second part of the second application is seeking relief from the same zoning bylaw. Section 6.28.1.I bracket B of the zoning bylaw allows a maximum driveway width of 6 meters, 6.0 meters, if the lot frontage is greater or equal to 9 meters and less than 18 meters. The applicant is proposing a driveway width of 6.6 meters, thus requiring a variance of 0.6 meters. Planning Services, no objections. Building, no comments. Infrastructure and Environmental, no objections, subject to a condition. Parks, Recreation and Culture, no objections, subject to conditions. Central York Fire, no comments received. Electra, no comments. No objections, sorry. And York Region, no objections. Heritage Planning, no objections. Hi, applicant.
Hi, my name is Shane Gregory, agent for the owners at 32 Wells Street. I don't have anything to add other to the positive staff report that we've received, and we are in agreement with all the conditions as well, so I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to this application? Seeing none, I'll look to the committee for questions or comments. Tom, anything? Other side, David? No? All right, we're all good. Then I'll look for a motion. Your turn. Go ahead.
I move application MV-2017-12A and B be approved, subject to the conditions as contained in the staff report.
Second? That carries. Thank you. The next is item number 9, and I'm going to turn the chair over to the vice chair as I have a pecuniary interest in this application. Thank you. Why does it come here with the...
Waiting. Here we are. Thank you. This is minor variance application MV 2017-18A and B. This is for 155 Edward Street, Unit Number 1, Lore Investments Limited in Trust. The applications are as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 2213-78 as amended, respecting for place of worship as a permitted use. The property in question is in a residential, industrial exception M1-6 zone. Section 25.4.8.1 of the zoning bylaw does not include place of worship as a permitted use. The applicant is proposing to allow a place of worship within Industrial Unit 1 on the subject lands, thus requiring a variance from this provision of the zoning bylaw. The purpose of application MV 2017-18B, the applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 2213-78 as amended, respecting for a reduction in the required parking spaces needed for public use of place of assembly. The property in question is in a restricted industrial exception M1-6 zone. Section 6.26.1.7 of the zoning bylaw requires 10 parking spaces for each 90 square meters of floor area devoted to a public use for places of assembly other than those specifically mentioned in the zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to use Unit 1 as a place of worship, which would require 97 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing 75 parking spaces as currently available on site, thus requiring a variance of 22 parking spaces. Comments received: planning services, no objections; building services, no comments; infrastructure and environmental services, no objections, subject to condition; parks, recreation, and cultural service, no comments; Central York Fire Services, no comments received; utilities, no comments; York Region, no objections, no comments from utilities; and Metrolinx, no comments received. Applicant or agent. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing us to. My name is Rifat Mohammed. I'm speaking on behalf of the owner, and also we are the intended tenant who would like to use it as a place of worship. We are a Labrar Association, and we are actually recommending that, requesting the Committee of Adjustment to give us the exemption allowance of using this place as a place of worship in 155 Edward Street, Unit 1. We also would like to have that place as a place of worship, means a church, not assembly, because basically we are actually, as a church, serving a group of people in Aurora, in a faith group. The lack of available places zoned as places of worship is in Aurora very limited and in very busy areas. And we finally found this owner to give us one of his units to use it as a place of worship to serve our faith group in the town of Aurora. By allowing us using this place as a place of worship, a church will provide support to our community and also therefore will relieve the burden on the system, as we also help the people living in Aurora in different means and in different ways. As well as we provide support to the youth and adults and newcomers and people who are immigrants and helping in many aspects. Also, we believe that we are by the town, we believe that there is incorrect explanation of we are assembly or whether we are assembly or a church. We are basically a place of worship that is very similar and exactly same work of a church. When it comes to our worship, it's instead of sitting on seats, we just stand on rows. So this allows us actually to use more space per individual instead of using seats. The following facts, maybe a memorandum, shows that we are a place of worship as a church and not a place of assembly. The place of worship at church is defined in the bylaws as a building of part thereof that used by a religious organization for the practice of religion. That's section 626.117. The place of assembly actually defined in the bylaws as auditorium or theater or arena or restaurant and club or other similar activities. We pray in straight lines, as I mentioned. And instead of using fixed benches, we have some chairs for the elderly people and children and people who cannot actually pray standing. If we can call a place of worship, synagogue is a place of worship, church is a place of worship, mosque is a place of worship, Hindu temple is a place of worship. It is also clear that we are not a place of assembly, rather we are actually a place of worship, a church. The subject land is located also in Aurora of Promenade General area and is consistent with the town's official plan that shows mixed use with parking reduction as new requirements for that location. The transplant also that has been done recently to the place, given us the requirements that would be 15 parking spots is only will suffice what is needed by the town of Aurora. Also, the parking requirements would be 14 spots using these numbers in the future plan. We exceed the parking requirements with excess parking for future growth. In addition to that, also, in case there is a street parking allowed for maximum of 3 hours in Edward Street and in Cousins Street nearby. In conclusion, we would like to request our respective committee of adjustment to give us the approval so that we can be using that Unit 1 in 155 Edwards as a place of worship church with the relief from any additional parking spaces requirements. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this particular application? Please come forward, and your name and your address would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, it's Heather Velma. I live at 83 Cousins Drive. I've lived in this town my whole life. This building is commercial, and now you want to add more parking spaces, and we don't need it. We have 28 young children living on our street. We don't need more cars, more people in our area. They have to get there by car because there's no public transportation to that area. I want to know what hours they'd be there. Anyway, it's an M1 restricted. Do you have to make application to change that first for zoning? need any more traffic in our area. I don't know how else to put this. It says a variance for parking. That's what you've proposed in one paragraph. But none of my neighbors, but 2 businesses, got this letter. I have talked to my neighbors. I have one from one neighbor who says no way. The other people don't know anything about this. So can we have it come back and have our neighborhood be asked this? Can you tell me why nobody else got it? I got it, 2 other people. I think we need to readdress it.
Yeah.
And our whole neighborhood needs to hear it.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions that you're asking about the application that relate to procedure and circulation and process. So I'll let you come back to it, but perhaps we can get staff to just run through that. Yeah, let's run through that just very quickly.
Through the chair, as per the Planning Act, all residents, all properties within 60 meters of the subject property are circulated. As per council directive, we do 120 meters. So a mail out was sent out to all the residents within a 120 meter radius. In addition, a sign is posted on the property. Oh, okay, well, the sign is there. I can tell you that of all the adjacent municipalities, we do have one of the largest signs there. I'm not saying it's perfect. It is there. In addition, the notice is posted on the website. Prior to this hearing occurring, I did speak to 2 residents on the phone. Yes, and you're always welcome to come in and speak with me and get more information as well. And I believe I did let you know if anyone else wants to speak with me, they're always welcome to come in and speak with us, and I can provide the notice as well. But I'll tell you, as I mentioned, notification was done, and staff are...
Door to door, no one had this letter. One other neighbor. Well, you know, why?
Here, okay. You just direct them through me and please, and I'll...
Why was this not given to every neighbor in the neighborhood? I mean, you don't give them any more for other things either, ripping down houses, right? So, no, I just want to know why we're going to have, is it 90-some parking spaces? Already sitting there in that building, there are 9 cars that sit there unplated. There is now that road doesn't go through. There's the transport trailers that park up there. I just feel that we need to find out really what's going to go on and what time of day and how many hours there will be vehicles. And no, we don't want them parking on Cousins Drive.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add before?
I just don't think that that building should become a church or a place of worship or whatever else you want to call it. Am I wrong? I mean, is that so that the owner of the building can then not pay extra taxes on it? Because you don't pay extra taxes for churches.
We're not debate. We're not. Yeah, we're not. Okay, let me try and answer your questions. Okay, number one, this committee is addressing 2 issues and 2 issues only. The first one is to include within the regulation or a variance that is required to allow a place of worship in the restricted industrial exception zone. Now, I'll look to staff because you're questioning the land use as opposed to a full-blown zoning amendment, I would assume, versus why we are considering this as a minor variance. That's number one. And number two, the issue of parking. The parking issue is really a municipal regulation based on the number of parking spaces that you require in a place of worship for so many square meters of floor area. Nothing to do with how many people may be coming to the place of worship at any one given time, or whether or not they feel, and I think we heard the applicant talk about the actual parking that they feel they will need, which will not exceed what is available on site. However, there is a condition within the comments that have been received that requires the applicant to secure through a letter of intent the additional parking spaces. So I'm going to come back to that, to the applicant, to see where they stand with regards to that. But I'll look to staff to comment on the use within the restricted industrial exception zone, and why is it a minor variance in order to get that particular use approved.
Mr. Chair, this was applied as a minor variance. It was reviewed by planning staff, and it was basically it's laid out in the report that it was felt by staff that it maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and it was determined to be considered to be minor and desirable to meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act, which are required as for every minor variance application. And it was determined that those tests were met, and so that this was appropriate as a minor variance rather than a full rezoning application.
Can I ask another question? Yes, you can. Are they going to zone it? Will they rezone this building? No. Is that the idea?
No. The application, okay, is not a rezoning. It's a variance to allow that particular use in that particular part of a building. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Have you looked at the report? Because the report gives some fairly good detail on the content and the application itself. There's a copy of the report on the desk here if you'd like to grab a copy of that. Yeah, okay, well, yeah. I would strongly suggest that you grab a copy of the report and review it and look at what they actually are proposing in terms of the building and that part of the building that they're moving into or wish to move into, should this committee approve it.
In there are what, 5 already existing. They won't be taking over any of this other parts, just that one unit, correct? So during the day, this is pretty well full of vehicles. So that would mean we would have people parking on our street and Edward Street, the overflow. Because it's already full during the day.
There's a possibility of that if on-street parking is permitted.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Then that would be the restrictions that would apply.
Which days are these?
That information I don't have. I don't know if staff have that. I don't remember seeing it there, but I'm sure if you want to contact staff, they'd be able to tell you exactly. I'm sorry, what's your question?
What time of the day with all this extra parking and people be around?
I believe there is a report that's annexed to the application from Transplan that provides that information, but I'll ask the applicant to come forward. Yeah. Is there any, just before you come back, I'll ask if there's anyone else from the public that wishes to speak to the application. Please come forward, your name and your address, please, sir. Thank you.
Good evening. James Clare, 43 Royal Road. I agree with them. It's a busy area. They said that themselves. And I agree with the lady. The area is getting so busy now that a couple on their street moved away because it wasn't safe for the kids to even play on the front lawn. Royal Road is getting to be a free-for-all. At any time, until very recently, we have at least 9 cars doing 3-point turns, practicing, and there's signs at both ends of the street, and the bylaw office doesn't enforce that. Now we have a shortcut for the transport trucks to come down this Royal Road to Edward Street to go down to, I believe it's 215 or something, Edward, that trucking stop, and they haven't done anything about that. So now we've complained about the road all crumbling and breaking because the road's heavily used. The road's so heavily used that, how can I say this? Oh, we'll start on a normal day, okay? Monday morning, 6 o'clock. We have the onslaught of cars going to Tim Hortons, okay? And since there's no sign like across the street at Country Style, they can go in and they can come back down our street. So they're coming back down the street with their cell phone and their coffee and writing stop signs, all that. So we have that. So we must have, I'd say, at least 300 cars a day. At least 300 cars a day. Then we have Saturday night, we have the Greystones Drunkathon. And they're backed up down the street 2 blocks, and they're parked there all night. No bylaw, no cops, beer bottles, people making love on the lawns. I've been there for 26 years. I've seen it all. Now, it's getting to the point, it's getting so busy on Royal Road and Edwards. You can wait at my intersection for 5 minutes before you can make a left or right-hand turn. With all the transport trucks and all the cars and people parking there for them, there's a meeting place down the street. The overflow from that parking lot, they said it'd be okay, but now they're parking everywhere else on all the deserted, empty warehouses. I see the overflow, say for example, if there's an overflow from these meeting place and they're parking, as you say, out on Edward Street and they're on both sides, well, that's a main thoroughfare for the ambulance and the fire trucks. There's all kinds of people, someone's got a heart attack or there's a fire in the area and both sides of the streets are parked and it's 2-hour parking, well, you can tell that to the firemen when they can't get down the street. And that concerns me, and it concerns me to the flow of traffic and no police presence in the area. It's a free-for-all. It's very safe for very unsafe for the people. I've had my car damaged. I've had my property damaged. There's drag racing up and down the street, and now you want to put more people in the area, and it's supposed to be for young couples raising families. As I say, there's families moving out because it's just unsafe. They've gone to the town about transport trucks, about driving schools, and they have just given up and left. I'm just saying, so that's how congested it is in the area, and you're saying that you are going to allow them to have a variance on the property because they think this might be enough parking, like that meeting place at Dunning and Edwards, and there's an overflow there. There's an overflow at the Greystones. There's an overflow at the school when there's people there. The streets are plugged all the time, and now we are thinking about putting more cars in the area. I don't understand it.
I appreciate your comments. I didn't want to prematurely stop you because I think, myself included, I'm in that area quite often, and I can attest to some of the traffic issues that you're speaking about. And I would suggest to you that maybe the approach, and you've raised some issues around conditions that have existed for quite some time, separate and apart for this particular application. So in the context of the application, what I'm hearing from you is there's an existing condition that is less than ideal, and the basis of your comments really are that this is not going to help. Okay. So I appreciate your comments, and members of the committee, I'm sure, will take that into consideration. And we'll move it forward on that basis. But what I'm going to do is perhaps to help answer some of your questions and some from your neighbor. I'll ask the applicant to come forward if you don't mind, and we'll get some information. Oh, is there someone else? I'm sorry. So I'm tracking what what you've been saying, and I will bring this back to the applicant in a moment. If I can get your name, sir, and your address, that would be appreciated. If your comments are going to be echoing what the two other folks.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Jim Canali, and I represent the owners at 159 Edward, just south of 155. My personal concern for me is that when I'm not there working, they might be, and I'm sure you won't, you'll tell it if you get your members not to park on my property. I will charge. My concern is, and I've sat here quietly and I've seen all your, and I respect what you guys do, and Mr. Rokos knows I've applied for applications here. To me, a minor variance isn't 33%. It's 5 or 10%. So, okay, so that was how I'm here. So there's many times I've come to the town and I say, and I consulted saying I want to do this here, and they consult with me and they say, well, that's quite a bit, like 25-30% of the variance. You have to go for site plan exemption. So it doesn't matter what goes there. There are rules to be followed and respected. I don't care if a bakery goes there. If they're respected or followed, a gym, and that's my thing. Because anytime I've come to the town, say it's I wanted to put a fence on my property, it's a simple thing as a fence. I still went there and it was a 0.2 of a setback. I would work to make it work. So that's all I'm saying is there. To me, it's minor. It's like 5 or 10%.
We've had these discussions on so many applications that have come forward, and I don't want to taint anything with my own personal views on it, because quite frankly, it's the municipality that makes the rules, and it decides what is considered minor within the envelope of the Planning Act. The Planning Act is really what lays out what the towns across Ontario can do in terms of what's a variance and what's minor, and it's up to the town then to go through all of the tests, if you will, within the Planning Act, and then bring a report forward for members of the committee to base its decisions on. So I agree with you. There are some parameters of zoning and of bylaw requirements that kind of get lost along the way sometimes. What might be minor to you might be major to someone else, and what is major to you might be minor to someone else. But there are guidelines that within the Planning Act that allow those parameters to be interpreted. And I understand, and I appreciate your comment about your own business and wanting to protect the parking spaces that you have. And I will be coming back to the applicant with questions on how they would satisfy one of the conditions within it. Yeah,
parking for 3 hours Monday to Friday. And that's helped, but that's just recent. So anyways, that's I just wanted to, it's called a minor variance to me, so I don't, that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Your comments, I appreciate everyone's comments and your indulgence. And, one of the things that can be done, just for your own benefit, is to write a letter to the mayor or speak to the councillor and make a request to limit parking on your streets in certain times where you do have concern about children playing, what have you. Those requests can be made directly to the town at any time, and you're more than welcome to do that. But I want to come back to the applicant, and I want to get a couple of questions maybe clarified. If
Prove is the overflow coming onto my property. Okay, thank you.
So included in the application, there is a report that was put together by Transplan. So let's answer some of the questions up front. First one would be, if it's a place of worship, are there going to be, some standard type hours that would apply, if you wouldn't mind?
Thank you so much for our friends here. What happens is we are a faith group that prays very just like the church. They use it once a week. For example, the maximum of people who come to attend our prayers, they come on Fridays between 1:30 and 2 p.m. So that's for 30 minutes maximum, the maximum number of people attend in our property. Other than that, and usually the number that is actually, we are actually trying to accommodate is about 70 people to attend the prayers. And based on the church's parking bylaws, we are actually 10 to 1, so actually about less than 10 spots is enough for our use. The other thing is the other times of the prayers. We usually we have 5 times of prayers, 5 times a day. So those 5 times a day attended by how many people? It's like 5 to 10 people at max, and those people, they just there for maximum of 10-15 minutes, and then they leave afterwards to their work or to whatever they do. Most of our regular functions happens in the evening times, or in the weekends when no traffic, not too many. The place is quiet, and also in the property itself, Unit 1, there is a designated parking only for that unit, which is over 23 parking spots for only that specific unit that we are having. Yes.
So thank you for that clarification. I think that helps. That certainly helps me, and does help, I think, the members of the committee. The report that came forward, which was dated April the 11th of this year, basically summarizes what you've just said there. And again, I would suggest that staff have gone through this and have come to the conclusion that one of the conditions should be that you satisfy here is that and I'll read the condition so that everyone here understands it, that the owner shall provide letter of undertaking with the town to demonstrate that the 22 outstanding parking spaces shall be satisfactorily provided at the nearby properties as proposed by the owner. So you just heard the owner, or the gentleman who represents 159. Or is it one? Yeah, you're 159, correct? Yeah, and I would suggest again that before you make that decision, please have a look at what his needs are in terms of, what his peak times and what have you before you say no. I mean, you can say no anyway, but what you're going to have to do is, and I don't know if you've made any inroads anywhere with anyone else, that you're going to be able to come to the town and demonstrate that you do have those 22 spaces that you're short, even if at the worst case scenario, you're never going to need them. So I'm asking, have you been able to secure any of those agreements with any of the adjacent property owners? Are you waiting until this variance has been addressed, and are you okay with that condition?
Our owner that we are trying to lease from, he has multiple properties in both sides, north and south of the property. But actually, what we are trying to defend here is that if we are a church and a place of worship. Meanwhile, if we look at Aurora in the old town of Aurora, it's mainly places of worship and churches, and none of them, or most of them, they don't have actually parking. But in our case, we have more than 23 parking spots that is only designated for our use, and the remaining building actually, which is over 70 plus cars spots, and it's only used by a couple units. Other than our unit, and it's very limited number of cars attend in those units because they are not a sample, and they are not actually, it's just a business, so they have very limited number of cars that attend there. So the number that we're actually having around the building, including the designated ones that we have, it's more than enough for our use. That's why we're trying here. We ask that we are actually asking for relief of these 22, because there is actually no need, as the building itself has more than enough, over 70 spots.
So as I understand it, what you are asking the committee to consider is a relief of that condition as well, right? I'll ask members of the committee, other members of the committee, if they have any questions on this application. Roy?
Am I working? Yes. Good. You mentioned, sir, you meet for worship 5 times a day? Yes. Okay.
5 times a day in a different time. Noon, afternoon, and sunset and evening prayers. And those ones are attended by a very limited number of people who just are able to come and make it. The only prayer that has a gathering, or we can say a crowd, which is about 60 to 70 people, is the Friday prayers sermon, which is attended every Friday, only for maximum of 30 minutes, because they listen to the sermon and then they pray and leave. And then yes. Sorry?
Am I okay? How long might the worship last? Like a half an hour or an hour the other times, the other 4 times? Or?
The prayer itself actually lasts 5s. It looks like 5s, but actually, if we combine them together, we actually, when we tell our people to worship, you only give God 25 minutes a day. So it means 5 minutes for each prayer. And people just, the moment they finish prayers, they go back to their businesses and their work.
Whoops, hello. Could I ask staff to comment on that 22 parking spaces and the letter of undertaking? Marty or Justin?
Through the chair, that I believe the applicant explained it well. It's it's the owner that has other surrounding properties, and it was something that was put in there by the infrastructure department as a condition. That being said, the official plan parking requirement in the promenade, as was mentioned, is actually quite a bit lower than what the zoning requirement is. and which is it's actually a maximum of 3.0 parking spaces per 100 square meters, which works out to 14 parking spaces for the requirement. So there was no objection to the variance for parking. I don't know if that answers the question.
Approved, would that condition still stand, or what do we do with it?
Through the chair, if the application is approved with all the recommended conditions, then that condition would stand, and it would be up to the engineering staff to sign off on the condition. The committee does have the choice of not requiring that condition.
Through the chair, yeah, I have a question and also a comment on the condition. So just to confirm ahead, but I just want to hear it, again. How many parking spaces are reserved solely for the worship? How many? Like whenever and any time, any day, these are specific for the worship. Do you have something like that designated for the worship?
1 plus 10 more, I think, at the back. You told us to use 31.
No, can you answer this? Because I am not really clear, sir. How many parking spots?
Solely for us.
Oh, yeah. We have in the site, by the owner, there is a designated over than 23 parking spots are available for us only for our use. And that is like by itself to Edward Street. That is plus the remaining parking in all around the building, which actually altogether is over 70 parking spots. So there is more than enough to that building, specific building, including our units, and it's hardly used. And we have done the transportation study has explained that most of these spots are actually empty in the whole daytime. And our use, we don't use most of the weekdays. Our use is actually only the 15 minutes of the prayers, the noon time, afternoon times, which is after 5, and the night time, which is nobody actually there except us in the whole building from Unit 1.
You later dated March 21st. At the end there, you summarize sort of, you have prayers every, you have not exceeding 20 people in attendance on any given day. And you have, on a Friday, 60 people. So 60 people, let's say, approximately the number of people, like one person in each car, or you have maybe even 3 or 4 in each car?
It's different.
Yeah, okay.
So most of the time the people come as a family, so they're serving families.
Yeah, okay.
And that's why we're the only service place that provides service to this kind of face group.
Another question. I can see from the memo from the municipal engineer, or I'll say from the infrastructure and the environmental services. It gives a good description that you see the nearby, the parking space will be provided by the nearby properties owned by the owner. But if you look at the condition, if you read the condition, it doesn't really specify that. So my proposal to the committee, or even to the staff, is if you look at the condition, if we were going to accept, after nearby, you should put nearby owners' properties as proposed by the owner. Because the way it looks there, it says by nearby properties. What if those properties, they are sold or they're occupied by somebody else? So this is attached to the fact that those nearby properties are owned by that owner, and that owner is providing parking. But this condition doesn't read that way. So basically the obligation, the way it is the obligation is also on the owner the fact that he's owning those nearby properties, he is able also to provide those parking spaces. So what I'm saying is, it should read nearby owners' properties as proposed by the owner. Because if you say nearby properties, those nearby properties may not be owned by the owner. The owner may sell. The church may be going on for the next 10 years or 5, 10 years, whatever. The ownership may change on those nearby properties. You follow what I'm saying? But the condition should be very specific, that it's the owner's properties. And because it's the owner who owns those properties, is giving you the chance to park there, or is providing the parking space. Is it somehow clear?
Yeah, I think that actually makes sense. Yeah. Add a word in that condition to read, provided at the nearby owner's properties as proposed by the owner. I think if a motion comes forward to approve, then we can add that in the condition. So, David, have you got anything else to add to that? I'll just ask the applicant. So are you clear on that? You know, obviously at this point in time, the owner of adjacent properties is the direction that condition goes. So we would, you understood that? Okay. So I'll look to my committee. Yes, go ahead.
Just when we stick to the fact that we are a church, this condition will apply if we really consider as assembly, but we are not. We are actually a place of worship that resemble a church. So that's why we are asking for the relief of that condition, please.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying and the reason why you're asking for relief based on a place of worship. But you do, and you did mention that you do have other events. And so I wouldn't want to tie your hands, you know, based on that if if yourself wanted to host an event, it becomes a place of assembly as opposed to a church. So, and I'm not speaking for anyone else at the table here, but I don't think you're going to get relief from that condition, sir. And I'll leave it to the two gentlemen on my left, on your right, and I'll look to them for a motion.
So the chair, I just want just to also one clarification. The way it is now, do you have posters, like posters indicating that this is a church or the name of the church? Do you have such posters like on the building? Like a sign? Yeah, a signage. We don't have signs yet until
this zoning solved.
So, the other question is, are you proposing that worshiping there, or you're already worshiping?
Point, we are not using the property at all, but we are worshiping, yes, but we don't have a space yet. We actually rent from the Aurora Town the gym every Friday for the sermon.
I may just interject just briefly. I think it might be useful to just provide a little bit of background on the question of the place of assembly versus church when it comes to the parking requirement. Basically, the parking requirements of the zoning bylaw were put in place in 1978 when it wasn't really contemplated that a place of worship could be anything other than a church. So the parking requirements were based on seating and pews, which in this case that's not the case. The manager of building services made the call that the most appropriate category would be a place of assembly when it comes to calculating the parking requirements. It might be worth noting that in the new zoning bylaw, which is it should be in front of council in the spring, later on in the spring. That has been addressed, and it has been refined. And in the case where there is no seating, the requirement in that is actually 6.5 per 100 square meters as opposed to 10 per 90. So it is a lower standard for the parking. Yeah, I just thought that would be worth just some context as to the difference between those two categories.
I appreciate those comments, and I know that we've heard on a number of occasions that the town of Aurora right now has some, what I would call or term in terms of municipal standards, much higher parking ratios than other municipalities. But that's again, we were anticipating that this new zoning bylaw is going to come forward, but appreciate the knowledge that that a new standard would apply. So again, thank you, Marty. I appreciate that, and I'll look to members of the committee.
Through the chair, I move that the two applications be approved. The first one dealing with respect to place of worship, and the second one with reduction of parking, with the one condition, with two conditions, and the first condition, which should read, the owner shall provide letter of undertaking with the town to demonstrate that the 22 outstanding parking spaces shall be satisfactorily provided at the nearby owner's properties as proposed by the owner. So inserting the word owners between nearby and properties.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. And thank you. And with that, I will turn the chair back over to Chairperson Grace. Welcome back. Yeah, so you're item 12.
Application number 12. This is minor variance application, Aurora Century Properties, number 4, Don Hillock Drive. The applicant is seeking relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw number 221378 as amended, respecting to allow an increase in maximum floor area ratio to facilitate development of a hotel. The property in question is in a business park BP zone. Section 27.d.4.4 of the zoning bylaw requires maximum floor area ratio of 50%. The applicant is proposing floor area ratio of 85%, thus requiring a variance of 35%. The next application is the same zoning bylaw, and this one is to allow an increase in the maximum height to facilitate development of a hotel. The bylaw requires a maximum height of 4 stories. The applicant is proposing a height of 6 stories, thus requiring a variance of 2 stories. Application C is for the same property. The bylaw requires 208 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing 121 parking spaces, thus requiring a variance of 87 parking spaces. And application D is the bylaw states ingress and egress to and from required parking spaces is between 4 and 9 meters in width. The applicant is proposing 9.4 meters for the entrance exit at Don Hillock Drive, exceeding the allowable by 0.4 meters, thus requiring relief from the bylaw. Planning Services had no objections. Building Services, but there is a condition, sorry. Building Services, no comments. Infrastructure and Environmental, no concerns. Parks, Rec, and Cultural Services, no comments. Central York Fire, no comments received. Electric Utilities, no objections. And York Region had no objection with comment in our supplementary information. Applicant or agent?
Members of the committee, my name is Lynn Saplis. I'm the architect for Century Developments for this property, for Aurora Century Properties, sorry, for the development of the hotel. I think the variances are appropriate for the product that we're putting into Aurora. We're looking at a 6-story limited service Hilton hotel. Due to the site conditions, and given the fact that it's up against Leslie Street, we've had to deal with some density issues by pushing the building directly up onto Leslie Street to allow for the surface parking that is required for the hotel. There is a transportation study attached to the report. And just to give a little clarity on the parking coefficient, the zoning bylaw, Aurora's zoning bylaw for hotels defines public space as everything outside of the rooms for the hotel. So in this instance, given the calculations of things like the exercise room and the pool, they all were attributed for parking. So given that we have 2,800 square feet, I'll just give you an example, 2,800 square feet of pool and exercise room, they require approximately 14, 15 parking spaces into the calculation. The front lobby requires parking spaces into the calculation. So the definition of defining 208 parking spaces on a hotel of this stature, when all other municipalities go to a 1-to-1 room ratio with all ancillary spaces within the hotel being accommodated, is the norm. That has given rise to the parking variance. The density variance, or the GFA coverage, is directly attributed to where we have to place the hotel, and given that we need 6 stories, which automatically takes us from the 50% ratio to the 85% ratio. I believe the egress and increase in the maximum allowable width of the ingress and egress is, again, a requirement for us to get past the existing main hydro transformer feed in there and to allow for the fire trucks to make the turn. We don't think that that's that much of an issue in respect to variance. I think I've identified where we stand in respect to development of this property. It's a Hilton. It's a good hotel. It's going to be 121 rooms. We have 121 parking spaces. For all intents and purposes, I believe it meets the 4 tests. We've had extensive conversations with the planning department and with various other sections of the approval process, and we are subject to and agree with the condition that we are subject to site plan control, which will deal with all other issues like landscaping and define our utility in and out of the property, and hopefully fine tune the application. Those are my comments.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll ask if there's any members of the public that wish to address this application. Okay, seeing none, then I'll look to the committee for comments, questions. David?
Through the chair, do you have a drawing, like this one here? Basically, I want to know where the entrance and exits I just want to confirm my understanding looking at this drawing, which is not very clear. Do you have, like, you can put somewhere on the projector or somewhere? So where is the entrance and the exit?
That's the only entrance, sorry. The fire department came back to us. This drawing was done before with the application, but the fire department came back to us and asked for a wider entrance. The maximum allowed is 9 meters. We were doing 7.5. Okay.
Sorry, may I interject on that point? So the fire department asked you to make it bigger?
Yes.
Put it outside the zoning requirements, and yet we see no comments received from Central York Fire.
We had
Could I ask?
we were at a pre-consultation meeting when when that was brought up to us.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. No, I understand that. I'm just finding it odd that we'd have a variance in front of us that the fire department asked for and no comments from the fire department. Just seems a bit odd to me, but thank you.
Okay, the other one, I think it's also related to the staff. This is about the hotel being located with respect location with respect to the 18-meter distance from the center line of the road, center line of Leslie. I know this is not like a condition, but I think it's important that I know it's not regarded as a condition. If let's say this is approved, it's important to recognize that because the region maybe you already know, they will ask for that distance. Now, if you're building the way you are showing it now, it's actually encroaching into that. You will be asked to move, and by moving, you will affect your parking space or even the building area. May also affect your parking spaces, your floor area, because things may have to shift. Maybe it could be a meter or half a meter or whatever. So just be cognizant of that matter when it comes to the site plan applications or later stage. I know the staff are not putting it as a condition, as like supplementary information, but this is very, very important supplementary information, which may affect your building envelope, may affect your parking. So make sure you consider it if this application is approved.
I might respectfully suggest whoever moves the motion, I was concerned about that as well, that this comment from the region came to us as part of their comments supplementary, but they did not make it a condition, and yet we're quite aware how important it is. So I'm going to suggest that we may want to consider making this a condition of our approval, because we have seen York Region in other applications put this as an actual condition. I was very surprised not to see it here, but to see it as a supplementary. So just if we do approve it, that may be another condition that we may
Can I say yes, if I may say something, we did discuss that with the region, and in actual fact, our building is 18 meters back. So that's why it hasn't been put in as a condition. We have had discussions with engineering, with planning, with Conservation Authority. This application has come to you with all of those considerations taken into effect.
And thank you, and I appreciate that, but our job is to do our due diligence, and when we get it as a supplementary comment, and prior to this we have seen that they've imposed it as a condition, to us this just looks odd. If their comment had have been that that's all met and we're fine with it, we'd have been fine with that too. So I am going to respectfully suggest to the committee that we put it in as a condition if we choose to.
We have no
approve this.
problem with that condition.
Thank you. Sorry, David, carry on. Yeah.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Roy, anything for you?
Just just to comment to staff, I'm so happy to see the this is subject to site plan approval. We don't get many applications that are subject to site plan approval, do we? Just a comment.
I can actually comment on that through the chair. Typically what happens is the site plan gets approved before the variance. Typically council likes to see an application before it goes to a minor variance. In this case, council has been working to getting a hotel in town for some time, and it was determined by the policy section that deals with employment area applications that it was appropriate to move ahead with the variance before the site plan goes to council.
You, Roy. Thank you, Tom.
If I could ask, can we put up the ground floor drawing, please? Oh, yours is quite different from mine. Okay. So, a couple of things, and I'm just hoping you've got answers for all of them, because I've in my career dealt with so many hotels. It's not even funny. Anyway, and typically what happens, or not typically, with some instances what happens is you've got 121 rooms and you've got 121 parking spaces, and you've got an event in the hotel, and your occupancy is 80 or 85%, and then you've got a party of 150 on the ground floor, and there's parking, but there's never enough. And when I was looking at the drawings that I had in my package, I couldn't tell what was on the ground floor. So I'm looking at, what am I looking at here? I'm looking at, what is that? Assembly space, meeting rooms? What am I looking at there? Walk me through it, please.
You're looking at a breakfast area, which is basically, this is a limited service product, so that what they do is they provide breakfast. You've been in a Hampton Inn. It's been, okay. This?
Or turn it sideways. Yes.
Okay.
There we go. So much better. Thank you.
All right. So we have, you come in through the front door, the vestibule, there's a lobby and a reception desk. And then to the right of that is what we would call the waiting area or lobby area. These buildings are not licensed, so there is no alcohol in the hotel. If there is an event in the meeting rooms, those are 3 meeting rooms, which approximately add up to about 25, almost 3,000 square feet. The program with Hilton on the Hampton Inn is that those meeting rooms are not rented to outside parties. So therefore people staying in the hotel would be the only ones that would be able to rent those rooms for any kind of conference facility or so forth. Yes, you would have some people, for example, you have a conference that brings people in from Atlanta, Georgia, or somewhere out of town. You may have some local participants, but that really doesn't amount to what you would consider to be a conference facility or a wedding or to that effect. This space is not set up for events like weddings or bar mitzvahs or whatever you want to call it. Now, that's not to say that it may not happen, but for all intents and purposes, the regular course of the product is not really conducive to that.
There's just a few of us here. Yeah, I guess, when I look at something like this, and please don't misunderstand me. When I looked at it and I didn't see what you're showing me here, 2 things went through my mind. When we're dealing with variances for coverage, for example, I'm thinking, why didn't we go to 7 floors and shrink the ground floor, right? Just make it a little taller, cut it back on the ground floor a little bit. Obviously, what I'm looking at here, you've got some obviously some back of house issues there that you've got to deal with, and these meeting rooms, you've got the. I'm not worried about your food service in the morning. That's obviously catered to your guests, and perhaps, you know, if the guest is there and has a family event to go to, yeah, come on over and join us for breakfast. You may get a percentage of outside residents coming to the facility in order to meet people for that type of thing. Can we slide it over a little bit so that we get to that pool area? I just want to look at that again. It is below. What floor am I looking at here? And so the pool is.
The location, we have a partial basement that is exposed to the lower part of Leslie. So the pool has actually been pushed downstairs to accommodate a larger pool and a larger exercise room, which seems to be the draw for most of these hotels, because it's set up for. And we do a lot of hotels right across the country, and the Hampton Inn is a perfect example of a team type of facility. So you would get hockey teams, basketball teams, soccer teams coming through, and even though we're set up as a 1-to-1 room ratio, chances of having 121 cars on 121 rooms at 100% capacity is next to nil. And the traffic report reads to that at any point in time, our 100% capacity, we would be 86 cars. So for all intents and purposes, the density is strictly for the economics of the product.
Anticipate staff-wise?
Is two shifts of 5 people, 3 shifts if you've got over 70% occupancy, and that's cleaning staff, which is basically three people plus supervisor, and then morning would be your biggest staff time, because you have two checkout people at the front desk, you have 1 person manning the breakfast room, and you have 3 staff cleaning rooms or getting set up to clean rooms. It's a limited service product, and it's very homegrown type of operation.
So you've got people leaving when that. You really did need that podium square footage in order to support the meeting rooms. What you're anticipated your capacity would be there. You're saying no? So why didn't you shrink it?
2 things. The building code takes us to a 6-story maximum, whereby it then goes into what they call a high-rise. And a high-rise has smoke evacuation for the stairwells. It has additional makeup air units and additional cost for the hotel that doesn't benefit the amount of rooms that and the cost of construction. So these hotels, if you look around, they're all 6 stories, and that's an economic factor on the product.
Thank you for indulging me.
You're welcome.
It's been a while since I played for hotels. With a lot of them. Thank you.
Okay, so any other questions or comments? Then I'll look to someone for a motion, please. David?
With the chair, I move that the applications be approved with the 2 conditions as provided in the staff's report.
Okay, I'm just going to supplement that a little bit. 1 condition provided in the report, and the committee recommends the addition of the condition that the regional road have the 36-meter right-of-way.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
So it's an set, but yeah, the wording of the condition in York Region's email of Monday, May the 8th at 10:05.
Yeah.
So staff can pick that up for us. All right, is there a seconder for that, Ron? Thank you. And call the vote. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. All right.
Let's get a hotel soon.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, were you here for? They're with you. Cool. When we have people left over and we're at the end of the agenda, I get concerned.
When are you looking to start?
It's construction August 1st, so it's going to be fairly aggressive with occupancy next summer.
That's great.
Operations.
Will you indulge me for a totally curious question that you
Shoot.
don't and do not feel obligated to answer?
No problem.
Did your client at all look at the building sitting on Yonge and consider whether refurbishing something that's already bricks and mortar there was a good business plan or no?
No, it
No,
was not a good. I've had 5 clients look at that property,
Have you?
and it just doesn't work as economically.
Unfortunate, because
Yeah,
it's
a
bit
new
of an
a new
eyesore.
building. A new building has much
Lovely.
more potential.
Yeah, and I guess I see it, just such an eyesore. I'd love to see something done with it, but thank you.
Suggest to the owner what he could do with it. I don't mean that negatively.
I know.
Okay, moving right along.
Thank you. Well, you were last, so have a good evening.
Thank you very much. That's right, yeah, okay. So any new business? I'll look to staff first if there's any new business for us. No, and members of the committee, any new business?
So I was just going to
go ahead. Push a button.
Follow up with a comment or a question to staff on, here we are sitting here with, four members of the committee, and when one has a conflict of interest, if we're not all here, we're down to a short quorum. Or no quorum. Yeah, thank you for correcting me on that one. I'm wondering if we might not include a concern in the minutes around replacement of any member who has missed meetings or has asked to be excluded from the committee. So I don't know how appropriate that would be to include it in the minutes. Maybe staff, if you want to comment on that.
Maybe as the chair, I might just jump in at this point. I did have a conversation with the town clerk prior to the meeting, and I would like to put an official direction to staff within the minutes from the committee, or at least from the chair, that as one of our members has now missed 3 consecutive meetings, this will be the 3rd, that the town clerk reach out to the procedural bylaw and procedures to see what can be done to get a replacement going. I'd like to make that as an official request now that 3 meetings has passed. All right? If
Thank
the
you.
committee's in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it, a motion for adjournment.
Also move.
Okay, we are adjourned, thank you. I had a note, because that he's missed 2, and if he missed tonight,